Be
Okay.
prompt.
We're good. We're good. We're live.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, Internet. It feels like it's been a while. This is the Tech Podcast in 30. Haim and I are here today talking about how Google is the creepy monster in your closet lately. Right, Haim? Do you agree?
I know where they're coming from. I don't agree. I mean, I don't think the large company, you always should be weary of everybody, but I don't think Google is the one that we should completely single out.
Okay, so the news item that spurred this episode, we'll use the Times headline: Europe challenges Google, seeing violations of its antitrust law. It begins with Google moving into the flight search arena, and in addition, Google artificially propping up their own products in searches that are otherwise supposed to be completely organic. It seems like that's par for the course. It seems like to ask them to do the opposite would be almost, like shackling them, putting extra weight on them in a race or something. But it's Google is using public internet infrastructure for a large portion of its business. I mean, let's get this out of the way first. Is that fair? Is that a fair criticism, Haim? Should the EU be breathing down Google's neck and saying, look, organic search results only, your stuff cannot rank higher artificially?
Look, I'm parroting a lot of what I've heard over the past 2 weeks on other podcasts. So
that's what podcasts are, just the echo chamber of the echo chamber. So it's good time. We actually don't want any unique thinking, please.
Well, what I've heard is that the EU, Google dominates. It's not like here where they're at 60% search. Over at the EU, they're way higher, 80% plus. And it feels like Google is just completely taking over. The problem that I have is that why wouldn't you put, if you type in directions, why wouldn't Google Maps be the first choice? Or I want to fly. What's the area? What's the 3-letter airport code for Newark? And Google's flight tracker has some sort of Newark information.
So let's unpack what you just said a little bit. First, I also have seen the blippy explanation that in the EU, Google is far and away the winner. Is the idea that part of that is because of their multilingual search is the best across Bing and whatever, if there's even a tertiary competitor? Is that the idea?
Well, who are the two competitors? We have Google and Bing.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. Yahoo is nothing but a Bing resyndicator, right? I mean,
you have DuckDuckGo, but nobody cares about them.
But DuckDuckGo is built on top of Google, right?
No, it's built on top of Bing.
Okay, now it's built on top of Bing. In any case, I think that it's Google's multilingual ability that really pushes it out in front in the EU, among other things. And is that just they've hit the trip mark or they've hit the benchmark rather? I just made up a new word, trip mark. But they hit the benchmark where now you got to pare them back down to 60% or 70% search dominance before they can artificially prop themselves up again. I mean, is that what's going on?
Well, as people were saying, a monopoly is only bad if you're anti-competitive. It's not a problem if you're the domination because you're the best one. I mean, if you're giving the best results, then that's it. But I guess what they're saying is that
I don't
giving
think
the best results.
I don't think that's true. I think that a true monopoly is inherently bad at a capitalistic level, even though it's penalizing people potentially, even if they play by the rules 100% of the time. The idea is that if the company is even in the slightest capacity built on public infrastructure, there has to be, it's like affirmative action in capitalism, because otherwise that particular business becomes so strong that growth overall for the country or for the world is hindered. It's like, I don't know, doing too many arm exercises and then your bicep takes over from your brain or something. I mean, that's the concept. A monopoly can be argued to be inherently bad.
Well, I mean, I don't see Google as a monopoly because we Google information that we need. If you're going to a shop, if you're going to buy something, the first place I go to is Amazon.
So these anecdotal like ways around Google, I mean, I don't know that even builds your case very much, right?
Well, if I want information, I do go to Google. To be honest, I've been hearing phenomenally good things about DuckDuckGo, and I really do want to try them out. At least their new versions. But if I want something, I go to the best search engine that gets the job done. If you're looking for music, I go to iTunes or Google Play Music, or Amazon. But again, I don't think that Google dominate. I don't go. The first thing I do is never just go straight to Google.
Do regulators? Okay, let's just. I probably veer too much into the philosophical arena, but the concept here is that if Google's search results are supposed to be organic, and they just they have their really fancy algorithm, and then like the last line in the algorithm is, if Microsoft's mapping solution came up first, bump them to second, and put Google Maps first. I mean, is that fair? I mean, as they're purporting to have organic isn't that what we're talking about here when they divert search traffic away artificially?
Well, I mean, I would always assume that a business is gonna put up their own results first.
I mean, I don't know if that's how Google's operated for a very long time, or is it just because Google is in so many arenas now where it's starting to be thrown in your face that they always win?
I mean, if you're doing something and Wikipedia has the best answer, can you say, and Wikipedia is always at least their number 1, 2, or 3, are you saying that Wikipedia is paying to be number 2, 1, 2, or 3?
Okay, let's pause the conversation. Like, let's get back to this. But this is what I wanted to do for this episode. I wanted to do a little thought experiment. Okay.
Okay.
So you're a guy and you're in Kansas and you have Google Fiber at your house. You have a Chromebook and you have an Android phone. Okay.
Okay.
And your router uses Google DNS.
Okay.
And you begin your day. Okay. And your company uses Google Apps and you use Gmail. Okay. You begin your day. And let's just say you throw in an Android Wear device into the mix, okay? How much of your day is spent in the Google sandbox? I mean, we are and is that such an absurd scenario that I just posited?
Well, no. I mean, I use a Chromebook. My work is eventually be Google Apps for Education, which they say they're not tracking us. I have an Android phone. I use Gmail.
Do you set your router to 888 and 8844? Okay.
No, I said it. I do open DNS, and so yes, I'm almost that person. Okay. But you know what? My Google Now is excellent.
So it turns around and you get good results because you're giving Google so much, right?
But yeah, and they also and you read their security reports. I mean, as much as we say, oh, they're doing all this stuff, but if you look in the behind the scenes of the security, they're doing all the right things. They're keeping their right things being a little liberally used. They're making all SHA-1 encryption algorithms throw up the big red unsecured lock. But they're doing the right thing. They're looking for security holes. They're rendering PDFs for you. They're doing the things that keep you secure. What they're doing is they're taking the data, and at least I think they're trying to make the internet a better place for you. And I don't think that they're purposely selling us out.
Okay, so let's go back to this guy though. I just wanted to think about how much of his day is spent feeding information into Google's the big Google dinosaur or whatever, and then having that dinosaur spit back out information at him, okay?
Well, it's probably the whole thing. His entire day is lived by there, and he's putting all this information. The thing is, the scary part is not what you put in, it's how they use it. And that's
I disagree with that, because I think that once all that data is in one place under one roof, if a bad actor gets access to it, they can just do things that they couldn't previously do. I'm just saying, there's something to be said for the edge case here, where all of your information is in one store place, like once, all of his, okay, so if you're using Chrome and you're using an Android phone and a Chromebook, I mean, every web search you do, even if it's not through Google, is probably being stored. And your location, not only your location, your historical location, all the regular stuff I could rattle off, but I mean, I'm trying to paint a picture of this place where there is this singularity for your digital life. And that singularity has to present a more dangerous kind of scenario than if things were siloed and you had to at least go around a couple of different fences to get to them. I mean, or you say, I want my Google Now cards to be really, really good all the time. And so I keep feeding information into Google.
I mean, look, I completely understand that, and for me, I'd rather have better Google Now cards. Okay,
so if we go back to this hypothetical dude in Kansas, the thing is, it can creep up on you, right? If you don't know that Android is Google and you don't associate Chrome with Google, after you clicked enough agree EULAs, I don't know if that people really know what where they're putting their data.
Exactly. Look, they're not. That's the problem.
Okay, so there's something to be said for that. Here's then as a guy that show everyone your Google badges on
my lanyard.
Yeah, I mean, they're all the Android badges, right?
These are all the hidden badges from IO, or at least I think I got all of them.
Okay, so as Googler, at what point does a government entity get to step in and say, look, you want to have Google Maps, it's got to be a separate division? Or does that break things up so much that it can't be as useful as it previously was?
I mean, from what they're trying to say is they want to break search down, and they say search is one entity. But I think you don't get good search results unless you know what people search. So I think if the government steps in and says you have to split maps off, I think all the search results go down the drain. I mean, because if you're typing barbecue places in New Brunswick, you're only going to get the SEO traffic that Paul rigs up. You're not going to get the reviews and the location data of where people are going.
Okay, I just as an aside, have you noticed that Google autocomplete has gotten eerily good? Like if you have just if you just read a news story about like two baseball players and you type in like the first letter of like the second baseball player's name or something, it comes up in autocomplete?
Yes, it does. And again, it's because, or maybe we're just human habit and we're doing exactly what everyone else is doing.
Exactly. Okay, so I just wanted to get that aside out of the way, and I wasn't just freaking out.
Look, if you break it up, here's the problem. The reason Google works is I'm in Waze. You use Waze. I'm in Waze. And
I just load up Google Maps.
Okay, well.
But okay, for the purpose of argument. Waze.
For the purposes, I like Waze when I have to meet somebody because I can send them the exact time. When I'm going just around town myself, I don't really care. But when if I'm either following someone or there's a time-sensitive issue, Waze, if the person sent me a calendar event, it pops up right in there. Now, Waze is owned by Google, but that's a good thing because you get on the road and you're like, oh, shoot, what's that address? Now you're doing it on your mobile phone. And to have that integration is just, I mean, it's really, really helpful. And yes, they ask and they say, can we do this? I don't think anyone will say, hey, no, I don't want you doing this. But I think it's really important that integration does happen, and I would want it.
If you take the ad sales out of Google and somehow it was almost paid for like as though it were like an internet tax paid for it or something, and you abstract not even the profit motive, but you abstract like the ability for one human being to look at your data that's not supposed to. In other words, it's just the silo becomes that your data is truly your data, and the only way it interacts with other people's data and is aggregated, it's automatically cleaned and anonymized. Maybe this is what they're doing already. Then it seems like an easy play to make to say, look, throw all of my digital data in the cloud. So yeah, I'm never in a situation where I'm on the road and the email from my calendar with a calendar entry in it is not being popped up on my map.
Well, remember when AOL had their breach and everything was de-anonymized?
But there was still
they figured out who it was based on something. It's the leaks that bother me. And until we can figure out how to properly handle those, yes, it's always going to be an issue. Do I want my stuff leaked out? But then I look at it and say, and I know that I do like to hide some stuff, but still, I know they have it all. So I guess I've accepted that.
So where to go back to this? Where does the government get to step in and say that? I mean, it seems like especially the United States government really doesn't have the moral authority vis-a-vis what Snowden showed us the NSA was doing. But it almost seems like there's this treasure trove of information, whether the NSA has it or not. We're opting into it. Do we want Google to have the keys to that lockbox? The government? Only us? I mean, how do you set it up so that it works?
The difference between Google and the government is you can't just break off from the government. Google, you can say, hey, look, if all of a sudden tomorrow something failed and Google really ticked you off, we can come up with alternatives to every single solution that's very, very good. It's not going to completely integrate and it's going to be a learning curve. But I mean, you can start. You can start by getting an iPhone. You can start by changing your search engine. You can use a different calendar. You can move all the stuff. The government, you can't just say, you can't do an Open Public Records Act, find out what they know about you and then say delete it. Google at least has Takeout, which is a division from there, and they say, hey, you can take your data out, you can delete your profile, and we promise you, and they haven't steered me wrong yet, we will delete this data.
I mean, haven't we all seen enough dystopian science fiction movies and read enough science fiction books to understand that we're all just slowly, like sheep, opting into this because we're like, yeah, I want my calendar to be integrated with my email, and then I want my phone to be integrated with my calendar.
Have you used Apple Pay yet?
Of course, yes.
Okay, I think there's your answer. I think you don't want it until that singular experience of paying by holding your phone magically over the thing and it says paid for.
Well, look, I mean, Google does Google Wallet, and you've been Trump.
Yeah, I think I think that's the coolest thing because you're already text messaging in line. What's the difference of hitting double tapping home and opening and swiping over?
Okay, so Google gets into the hardware space. There's Google X. There's all this stuff. I mean, we are just like very slowly walking into our dystopian future, aren't we? I mean, that's the worry. Or does it really make everything better for everyone? It's almost easier, Chaim, for my life and for your life to look at the things that Google currently doesn't directly influence, right? So one, you can use Google Wallet probably to make a lot of your purchases. Right now, Google doesn't give you any food, but they give you food reviews and directions to the food and let you pay for the food.
Yeah.
They currently don't make a car, but they want to make a driverless car, but they want to do your directions and show you how to get to a gas station, which then you use Google Wallet to pay for the gas.
Would you feel slightly better if Elon Musk licensed if Tesla licensed the Google self-driving car, whatever licenses, and Tesla made a self-driving car?
Don't get me started on Tesla. They're already doing their autopilot thing. They don't need Google's help there. They've got it down.
Okay.
Highway driving, Tesla is going to be completely autonomous. I mean, it's basically autonomous now, between like 35 and like 100 miles an hour if you want it to be.
Okay, so Google doesn't educate people.
How many of the pictures that you've taken of your son are stored in Google?
Well, all of them, only because I like them there. Okay,
so the percentage of your life, we only have a certain amount of energy to live our lives in a certain amount of time. I'm not even saying it's bad necessarily, but you just got to keep like the edge cases in mind. I mean, let's just say if you even do a thought experiment this way, if you were to die, right? Google has that feature that after 6 months it'll like text Rivka for you, and then after another 6 months you can get it. And then look what is there. What is left over is this archive of Chaim Conan for 1 billion other people too.
Well, look, I can spread it out. We can talk about spreading it out, and then you can figure out where all this stuff is, and maybe we should diversify our information.
Right. So what I'm getting around to in a really long way is that if the government can't step in and be the place that we deposit this information, what if all the government can do is say Google basically has to open the door to Microsoft? So now you have these two. You have competition again, which is supposed to benefit everyone, and the monopoly is the thing that's supposed to quash competition. Let Microsoft in the door a little bit and make it so that you might want a Windows phone and you might want to have your calendar in live.com and your driving directions on Google, and then the government can force the two of them.
Well, they do. You can do CalDAV. I mean, you have your Google Calendar there. You have CalDAV and CardDAV and WebDAV and everything on your iPhone. I mean, if you're going to say that, the one thing Google doesn't have is the social relationships that Facebook or Twitter or anything else have. And I'll agree that that's probably more important than anything else. And when asked, Google pays Twitter now to access the Twitter fire hose. I mean, the government has already said that Twitter is a good thing. We're archiving our tweets.
The idea that Google doesn't have a social graph for us isn't that kind of wishful thinking? I mean, everyone that you've emailed, every phone number you've texted or received a call from, I mean, it's all in your.
Well, they're trying to get into that social relationship, and I mean, even though I think Google Plus is alive and well, people will say that it's dead and should be killed off.
Does anyone compete with Google right now?
I mean, I think for cloud storage, I think Dropbox is way better.
Cloud, okay.
If you want shopping, I mean, we go to Amazon. If you want,
That's actual deliverables of retail products. Google does not, I mean, in a very small.
Well, I've never shopped for something and said, I'm looking for a drone. I don't go to Google and say drone. I mean, I type in drone reviews, I type in everything else, but I'm not looking at Google to buy something. But messaging, I think the iPhone really, I think Apple really has the mobile communication space down.
Well, I mean, just the hardware, basically. I mean, iMessage and that. Okay, so what you've got to do now, Chaim, is you've got to drop these breadcrumbs so that we can work our way back from this dystopian future to fix things. Where can we go right and where can we go wrong? What are the tips? When do you say to yourself, just for the sake, not of convenience, just for the principle of diversifying where my digital life is stored, do you opt out of Google and opt into somewhere else? Do you personally ever make that choice?
If Google can make my life easier, I'll generally go with them.
So the answer is never.
Well, I mean, I didn't put the DNS with it. I mean,
okay, but the answer is never. Effectively, for you, convenience trumps this principle 100% of the time.
Probably.
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying. I mean,
well, in the sense, let's say Facebook had the same services, I probably wouldn't go with them because of their track record of whether it's perceived true or not of how they would share stuff. And we can argue on whether it's true or not, but my current belief, and it's probably not true, is that Facebook doesn't care about our data. If Facebook wants to make money selling our data.
Okay, so you have these brand associations that are and again, it's not a criticism. They're almost religious, right? Yeah. It's just like you like Sergey and Larry a lot better than Mark Zuckerberg, which probably everyone does, right? But I mean, that's a fair way to make the decision.
And I do like the fact that Google, you look for a service that's ubiquitous. I don't store my passwords in Chrome's browser. I store them with LastPass.
Okay, I mean, I think that's a really good point of demarcation, actually.
I don't keep money in Google Wallet. I keep it in the bank.
Okay. I mean, those are valid.
I don't trust PayPal. I mean, I don't trust PayPal. Amazon's too expensive, so I would love to use Square, but for most people, they have Gmail. They have that brand association, like you said, so they won't use Jack Dorsey's company.
Well, Dorsey's a guy you can trust. I mean, I think anyway.
So I think we have like 3 minutes left. I didn't actually start a timer, but
time. That's your whole job. You should tell everyone where you're broadcasting from.
I'm broadcasting from my place of employment.
And I only heard 2 school bells, so that was kind of interesting.
Well, we go after school, and then there's a 5-minute, or 5 or 10 minute. The bus is leaving.
Okay, so in these remaining 3 minutes, in the next year, okay, or throughout the end of 2015, do you think that Google is going to have a major leak, a privacy leak, where someone gets around their security?
In the next year, I think it happens. I don't know if it's in the next year. I think that there will be something because I think it's inevitable. I think they all do. I think Microsoft does. I think Apple does. I think Facebook does. I think as they become more and more targets, Amazon does. But I don't know in the next year, and I wouldn't want to speculate on who would be first.
Well, that's the next question. I mean, so as we keep track of the security records of these companies, they all seem to be doing pretty decent, and then all we have left is eventually Arnold Schwarzenegger will come back in time and have to kill one of us or save one of our lives in order to prevent the computers from taking over.
You have to remember, so Google was one of the very first to implement two-factor authentication, and Google said.
Two-factor authentication only works.
Please call 6901.
That's scary, time. That is the voice of Google.
6901, thank you.
Two-factor authentication works to keep people that aren't in Google outside of your out of your account, right? But there's no guarantee that inside Google that doesn't put another layer of encryption on your data stored on Google servers.
So Google encrypts. So once the Edward Snowden documents leaked, they got very good at saying, you know what, from channel to channel, everything is encrypted. Yes, Google has the keys, but Google has the keys inside. So you would have to not only infiltrate Google, but you would have to steal those keys, which I don't know if it can be done.
I'm just saying that two-factor authentication. What I was talking about here, and is a matter of keeping. Okay, if you have two-factor authentication on and Google accidentally leaks plain text passwords, you're right. You're still pretty good. But I'm just saying, a rogue Google engineer is probably not going to be affected by two-factor authentication, right? I mean, internally.
Well,
I mean, maybe.
I don't know about that because the definition of two-factor is that there's no one there. If you lose it, there's no one you can call. There's no one that can do it. So if they have a backdoor,
That's it. Okay.
I don't know. I don't think so.
So we better hope Heimtime, in order to maintain his love of Google throughout the remainder of 2015, there ought not be a big leak, right? Then, and if there is, you're gonna use Google Takeout and delete your Gmail account, right?
Look, if there's a thing, I will very much think twice about leaving.
All right, and when you say leave, you mean moving to the EU after they slap Google with like a big lawsuit, right?
Well, no, not yet. But once I get my Spanish citizenship for being a Sephardic Jew, I may.
Okay, but you are on board through and through with Google. If Google had a country, Heim, would you prefer to be a citizen of Google's country?
Well, the better question is, with the Google MVNO, would I move to the Google MVNO?
Well, would you?
I'm thinking about it.
I mean, but then you would be on Sprint or T-Mobile, right? Because
I'm already on T-Mobile, and I'm very happy with T-Mobile. So I don't know if Sprint's having the addition of Sprint or whatever it is a benefit, but.
All right, on In30, Heim, I'm going to keep track of whether or not, 1, you move to Google DNS, 2, Google Wallet, and 3, using the built-in Chrome password sync, okay?
Okay. Anyway, we got to go. I'm sure we're
This
over.
has been episode something of In30.
78. Bye.
Thank you for listening.